Hey everyone, this is Kevin Tallman, the CEO of Mango. Do I say Mango Voice now, Kevin, or do you just go by Mango?
I don't know. Either one's fine.
I feel like
Yeah.
you guys have gotten big enough now that you can just be Mango. It's not the Facebook anymore, it's just Mango. That's how recognizable it is.
I'm
I
gonna
really
tell
appreciate. Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna tell people that. I'm gonna say Clint Berry signed off on manga.
Yep, it's just Mango, not Mango Voice. Well, I appreciate you joining here. Become friends with Kevin over the last couple years. Kevin's a great guy and a great leader. And as we're doing this series on voice AI, I felt like this is a good opportunity to get his take on it. And Kevin, so you guys have been growing like crazy, which is so fun to see, especially in the dental space, where I feel like it can be harder to grow these days with the amount of competition there is. But with all your growth over the last few years, with regard to voice AI specifically, when have you seen like this shift happen where you feel like, okay, we've got to do this? People have started to ask about it. It's time.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I remember going to lunch with you down here a couple of years ago, and we were talking about this, and I was really skeptical. I tend my personality is when everybody's really excited about something, I want to think about the other side of the bet and say, what are we missing? Or, I tend to think when I'm too excited, I maybe don't understand my blind spots well enough. So I came from more of a kind of a, hey, I don't know if this is really, the technology, is it going to pan out? Like, what are going to be the use cases of this? And I think when I really started to come around is the beginning of last year. I started talking to a lot of customers, and they started asking about, hey, what's Mango's plans with AI receptionist? Really dove into it with a lot of individual doctors and DSOs. And as everybody knows, there's a huge problem in dentistry that can be fixed with this product, which is 30% of your calls go unanswered. The crazier stat, Clint, is less than 20% of those get followed up on. So I started thinking about these real use cases, and you just saw kind of the technology start to evolve where it's different when you're in a real time environment. And you know this as well as anybody. When you're streaming audio in real time, you got to have the right tech stack to be able to deliver right experience. And I think, you know, over the last really 2.5 years, the technology's really evolved to where it's becoming reality.
It's incredible to see the change that's happened over the last couple of years. I do feel like that it's now getting to the point where it's doable. Obviously, you've shown that it's doable because you guys have already launched your first agent.
Hmm.
I'm curious to hear. It sounds like practices were asking you about it, so the adoption is probably speeding up. But typically, dental is really famously slow for adopting new technology. Typically, maybe this will be different, but you guys have this unique case where you are the phone system. The phone is already in every one of the practices that you have. Do you feel like the adoption curve for you guys has been different than maybe some other AI companies out there? Do you see it faster for you?
Yeah, I see it a lot faster for us. So we launched our first agent beginning of Q3 last year, and we already have, in the next month or two, we'll be at 1,000 agents that are live in practices. And I think where we have the advantage is a couple things. One is we're voice experts, and we own the phone system, which becomes incredibly valuable, right? So we're not trying to sit on someone else's rails, trying to stream audio and not understand what's going on. I think the other nice thing is incredibly rich data flywheel. Probably one of the richest, the richest voice data sets in dentistry is really us and Weave. And I think other than that, we also have really good relationships with the practice management systems, which is incredibly important for these. And um, we're grateful, but we have a big customer base, and they trust the Mango brand, and so it makes sense just to adopt it in your current tech stack. And so I think for those reasons, um, it's been easier. Building this technology is not easier, but the distribution part um, is much more defined for us.
I love it. I think those advantages are so real, especially the distribution. Building things these days is getting easier and easier and faster. The fact that you already have the customer base, and I think we all know that building a phone system, even from scratch or even with the open source technologies that we use, there's still quite a bit of moat there. You're not going to be able to go to an AI agent and say, hey, build me a scalable phone system just yet. Not yet, but it might come.
I don't know, and not only that, Clint, it's the regulatory, um, you know, compliance around phone systems. So can you build it? But then you understand this really, really well, is then you have to go out and, register with every state, register with the FCC. And I do think with these AI agents, regulatory capture in that sense is coming because it makes sense. You're streaming audio, you're interacting. And so there again, we feel like one of the moats is actually going to be the compliance piece and being fully compliant, which we are.
Ooh, I love that. That's something I didn't think about, especially as the compliance changes with the AI agents. You guys will be in a unique position to handle that. I love that.
That's right.
I've noticed a lot of the AI voice companies, and you know this as well as I do. This isn't going to surprise you. I mean, for our company, where we help companies get data, access to the practice management system data, we're doing probably 3 demos a week for new AI voice companies in dental. Like, it's insane how many people think they can just come in and build an AI voice agent
Mm-hmm.
overnight. And it's also strange to me how many are trying to be this batteries included everything. We do scheduling, we do insurance verification, we do everything using the voice. You guys took a little bit of a different approach. You started with more of an AI agent that kind of operates as the answering service for a practice. Is that the right way to word it?
Yeah. I mean, we were really clear about what our first use case was, which is never miss a phone call ever again. And I think it's really disingenuous where people come in and say, hey, we can answer all your calls, we can schedule your appointments, we can do your recare, we can do your insurance verification, we can do all these workflows. And the reason why is each one of these workflows is so incredibly complex, and no two offices are alike. So the way Office A schedules is different than how Office B or C or D schedules. And honestly, if you talk to a lot of offices, which I do, that have implemented one of these in schedule, is they turn it off because the feedback I hear most common is it actually creates more work for me because they're messing up my schedule, or we've got a separate column they're putting it in, I got to work it in. And so thinking how complex scheduling is, and you've built scheduling in dentistry, it is so highly complex. And getting that right is crucial because if you want to piss an office off, mess up their schedule, right? And you're done. And again, I think when you're a startup, and listen, Mega was a startup at one point, you don't have anything to lose. Well, we have a brand, we have a reputation. And so, we have to be a little more thoughtful about how we do this. But I think what you're going to find is you're going to find companies who become experts in these workflows. So, insurance verification, someone will be an expert in that because it's so complex. Chair side, you're seeing, now you're seeing a lot of the practice management's going to like chair side ambient listening, things like that. But I think that's what you're going to find. And maybe over time, Clint, you could become an expert in multiple of these workflows. But I'm just telling you, if you're in office and you hear this all in one solution, just hang up the phone and move on because you're going to be really disappointed.
That advice. Just hang up the phone and move on because it's not going to be a good experience for you. That's kind of how I feel. I mean, obviously I'm super biased, but I really appreciated your approach because I saw people doing, and they're jumping straight to voice even, which I was like, you could have just started with texting so there was like a more room for error and low latency. And even the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you guys got it to work with your AI answering service is still a good feat of engineering and still shows that the technology is getting better just to do the answering service. I love it. I'm sure it's having a big impact. You kind of talked about the how you approach the competitive landscape, but you're seeing like the Arenas. I put weave in my thing kind of because we keep thinking they're going to launch an AI voice agent and then they never do. Neurality, Viva. There's tons out there that are gaining at least a little bit of traction. How do you
Mm-hmm.
look at the landscape as you look at all these up and comers that are trying to gain a foothold?
Yeah, I mean, one is dentistry is really big, and it's not a zero-sum game. And, I think there'll be several winners here that will do really well. I truly believe that. Um, what I do believe is a couple of things I believe it deeply is owning infrastructure matters. And what it matters is if you sit on someone else's rails, for example, if someone says talk to a human and you don't own the rails, you can't reroute a call, right? You can't move a call around. When that call comes in initially, you don't have context on that call. You don't know who it is. You don't know anything about them. Where since we own the phone system and we talk to the practice management system, when that call comes in, we have a lot of context on who you are. We know when your last appointment was, when your next appointment is. We know who your insurance is. We know who your family members are. We know if you have a balance. Like we can get all this data, but when you sit on someone else's rails and a call gets forwarded to you, it's tougher to have that. You can figure it out, but that initial call we have, and like I said, you can't move the call around. And at the end of the day, to get this right, latency matters. And when you just understand voice and know how voice scales, which very few people do, we just feel like over the long run, we're positioned really well with our infrastructure, with our data, and our distribution.
I love that. Having the context of how the office operates too, because you know all their devices, all their phone users, you know which person is labeled as the insurance coordinator, you know who's the treatment planner, those type of things. Yeah, I love that. Instead of having to forward a call just in broadly to an office.
That's right.
Blind. Yeah.
And I think the other thing we've done, is we've tried to bring on to our team, which I think is part of this, is industry experts. So, we brought on Laura Nelson last year. If you know Laura Nelson, she's one of the top front office trainers in all of dentistry. She built a company called Front Office Rocks around this. Because the way you answer a question, if you say, hey, do you take my insurance? There's a right way and a wrong way to answer that. And what we wanted to do is bring in a true industry expert to say, hey, you're going to train our agent on how to answer these questions the right way. That, I think these are like the subtle nuances, Clint, that no one thinks about that really impact how that patient interacts with that agent and if they're going to be okay with it. And I think at the end of the day, to your point, the barrier to build these is becoming lower and lower. It's going to be these real nuanced things that will really set someone else apart.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. So if you could fast forward 5 years from now, what does the front office look like to you in a dental practice? Is AI taking all the calls? How do you look at that?
Yeah, I'm still a big believer that there's times when humans need to interact. And I think there's really complex cases where that's still the case. I think what you're going to see is identifying workflows that really take a lot of human time that can be automated. And I think where you'll see this a lot is around like insurance, right? RCM, insurance verification, I think you'll see a lot there. That makes a lot of sense to me. I think, again, overflow calls, reschedule calls, ASAP lists. And I think what you're going to see is, what we call patient engagement today is going to look a lot different in the next 3 to 5 years. A lot of that is going to be through these voice agents, or now when you talk about the ability to build a voice agent and a text agent, I believe we will know, hey, if I call Clint, he's not going to answer the call. But if I text him, I know I can get a hold of him. So they're going to become smart, and they're going to know you, and they're going to know how to interact with you. And so I think you'll see a lot of these things that take a ton of time start to migrate to these AI, agents. But I still think having that humanistic experience when you walk in, but now that person's not trying to, not trying to answer a call, not trying to do multiple things. They're really focused on you and creating that right experience at the practice. I still believe that's powerful. And I believe as humans, we really like that.
Amazing. Well, one last question then. What do you wish more practice owners understood about voice AI right now? What's the last thing you want to say to the owners that are subscribed and operators that are subscribed to this?
I think a couple things. Right now, this is not the solution to solve all your problems. And I think if you look at the technology as that, you're going to be disappointed. But if you could pick out one use case and address that and then move to the next one, you're probably going to realize, okay, this is great for this use case, and we're moving to this use case. So when I see people break, again, you brought it up, but paint these broad strokes, I'm like, they're just setting everybody up to be frustrated. So that's one. Two is compliance matters. So, for example, do you have a BAA signed with your AI receptionist company? Do you understand where they got their data and how they use that data to train? Like, that's super important. Do you understand what's their security measures? Because as an office, you're potentially setting yourself up for security vulnerabilities here because you're not going through the right process to understand. And when you're dealing, with HIPAA data, and the data sets these practices have, it's a real problem. And what we found, unfortunately, is we found, AI companies who were creating, unauthorized users in Mango and trying to extract data from us. And like, I always think, well, does the practice know this is actually happening? Because that is the practice's data. And so I think compliance matters. I think we talked a lot about infrastructure matters. And at the end of the day, the AI company's relationship to the practice management system at the end of the day really matters. And I think you've got to be really thoughtful about those things. And lastly is, what is the experience you want to create for your patients at your practice? And being really open and honest with the company that's delivering this technology to you so that you're aligned on that, and making sure that company understands what you're trying to accomplish. I think that's super important.
Love it. Kevin, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. You're growing fast, but yeah, I think people are going to love this. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it, buddy.